Hello and welcome back to our state rankings. Last episode we covered Louisiana, ranked number 50, dead last, the murder capital of America. Today we move up exactly one spot. Meet Mississippi, rank number 49. The good news? You're slightly less likely to get murdered here than in Louisiana. The bad news? Pretty much everything else. Mississippi's overall quality of life score, 14.56 out of 100. Better than Louisiana's 10, but let's be honest. That's like being proud you got a 14 on a test instead of a 10. You still failed spectacularly. Mississippi has been in the bottom two states since 2017, every single year, like clockwork. And here's what makes Mississippi uniquely fascinating compared to Louisiana. Louisiana has corruption and crime as its main villains. Mississippi's villain is poverty, pure, generational, crushing, inescapable poverty. Let's break it down. Let's start with the number that defines everything about Mississippi. Per capita income in Mississippi, $30,529. That is dead last in the entire country. Not 49th, not 48th, dead last. The national average is 65,000. Mississippi earns less than half the national average per person. Median household income, $44,966. Also dead last. Poverty rate, 18.8%. Highest in the nation. Nearly 1 in 5 Mississippians, almost 600,000 people, live below the poverty line. And this isn't new. Mississippi has always been the poorest state. In 2012, the poverty rate was 25%. They've improved to 18.8% and are actually proud of that, which is like being proud your house is only partially on fire instead of fully engulfed. The Commonwealth Fund, one of the most respected healthcare research organizations in America, ranks all 50 states and Washington, D.C. on healthcare quality. Mississippi ranks number 51, 51st out of 51. They're below Washington, D.C. That's last among every measurable healthcare system in America. Life expectancy in Mississippi, 74.4 years, one of the lowest in the nation. Infant mortality, Mississippi's infant mortality rate is nearly 3 times higher than Massachusetts. In 2026, 3 times. And here's the policy decision that makes this even more infuriating. Mississippi has refused to expand Medicaid under the Affordable Care Act. They're one of only 10 states that still say no. About 15% of Mississippians have no health insurance at all. So you're the poorest state in America with the worst health care in America, and your politicians are choosing to keep health care from poor people. Good governance, Mississippi. We already covered poverty, but let's talk about why it's so bad. Mississippi's economy is essentially built around 3 things: agriculture, gambling, and hoping the government sends more money. The Delta region, the Mississippi Delta, is considered one of the most economically depressed regions in the entire United States, not just Mississippi, the entire country. Unemployment in Mississippi consistently runs above the national average. Job growth? Minimal. New businesses? Not many want to set up shop in the poorest state in America. And here's a fun economic paradox for you. Mississippi is one of the most dependent states on federal government funding. The state receives about $2.13 in federal money for every $1 it pays in federal taxes. Mississippi is essentially on federal welfare while its politicians rail against welfare. You literally cannot make this stuff up. Now here's where Mississippi actually has an interesting story to tell. For years, decades even, Mississippi was an absolute disaster zone for education. Last place or near it consistently. But something genuinely surprising happened recently. Mississippi implemented what's called the Mississippi Miracle in reading education. They changed how they teach reading, went back to phonics-based instruction, and their reading scores have dramatically improved. In some recent education rankings, Mississippi climbed from 30th to 16th. That is real improvement and deserves genuine credit. But, and this is a big but, only 22% of Mississippi adults have a bachelor's degree. National average is 35%. High school completion, 85.3%, below the national average. And the overall education infrastructure, school funding, teacher pay, facilities, still reflects the poverty of the state. The Mississippi Miracle is real, but it's one bright spot in a very dark educational history. Here's something that might actually surprise you about Mississippi. Remember how Louisiana has the highest murder rate in America? Well, Mississippi is the runner-up. Only Washington, D.C. has more homicide deaths per capita than Mississippi. Jackson, the state capital, is consistently ranked as one of the most dangerous cities in America. In 2026, Laurel, Mississippi tops the most dangerous cities list with 60 crimes per 1,000 residents. 60 crimes per 1,000 people. That means in a neighborhood of 1,000 people, 60 of them will be crime victims this year. However, and this is real credit, violent crime in Mississippi actually dropped 17% between 2022 and 2023. That's meaningful progress. It doesn't erase decades of high crime, but improvement is improvement. Given everything we've covered, poorest state, worst health care, high crime, limited economy, you'd think the taxes would at least be rock bottom, right? Actually, Mississippi is one of the better states on taxes, genuinely. Overall tax burden is about 8.4%, ranking around 32nd. Not terrible. Income tax, up to 5%, middle of the road. Property tax, 0.61%, very low. Sales tax, 7% base rate, moderate. And here's the kicker. Mississippi actually eliminated its income tax on wages recently, or is in the process of doing so. That's a genuine economic positive. So paradoxically, the poorest state in America is actually making some smart tax moves. It just doesn't help much when there's no money to tax in the first place. Infrastructure in Mississippi? About what you'd expect from the poorest state in America. Roads are rough. Rural broadband access is terrible. Jackson, the capital city, has had an ongoing water crisis where the water system literally failed and residents couldn't drink the tap water for extended periods. The capital city of a state couldn't provide clean drinking water in 2022 and beyond. As for personal freedom, Mississippi is deep Bible Belt territory. You can't gamble online. Mississippi says you have to go to their casinos. Recreational cannabis is still illegal, though they did approve medical marijuana in 2022, so credit for that. Some alcohol restrictions remain. The gambling thing is really about both. Mississippi has casinos and wants you gambling where they can control it and tax it. Overall, Mississippi isn't the freedom restricting nightmare you might imagine, but it's definitely more restrictive than a lot of states. This is Bible Belt territory, so conservative values influence policy. Okay, fair is fair. What does Mississippi actually have going for it? The blues. Mississippi is the birthplace of the blues. B.B. King, Robert Johnson, Muddy Waters, Elvis Presley, they all came from Mississippi. The musical heritage here is unmatched. The Mississippi Delta is literally where American music was born. Blues, rock and roll, country, all trace back to this state. That's not nothing. That's actually everything when it comes to cultural legacy. Affordability. Here's one that'll shock you. Mississippi ranks number 8 in affordability in the entire country. You can buy a house for $150,000 that would cost $600,000 in California. Your dollar genuinely stretches further here than almost anywhere in America. Southern hospitality. Mississippi people are genuinely some of the nicest, most welcoming people you'll ever meet. Southern hospitality is real, and Mississippi has it in abundance. Natural beauty. The Mississippi Gulf Coast is gorgeous. The Delta landscape is hauntingly beautiful. The rivers, the cypress swamps, the Spanish moss, Mississippi looks incredible. The Mississippi Miracle. We already mentioned this, but it deserves repeating. The education reform happening here is real and it's working. That shows a state can change when the right people make the right decisions. Here's the thing that's genuinely heartbreaking about Mississippi. The people are warm, the culture is rich, the land is beautiful, the cost of living is low, the education reform is working, and yet people are leaving. Mississippi is one of the fastest shrinking states in America. People vote with their feet, and they're voting against Mississippi. The young, the educated, the ambitious, they leave because opportunity is elsewhere. and every person who leaves makes it harder for the state to recover. Fewer taxpayers, less innovation, more poverty. Mississippi is trapped in a cycle that requires bold leadership to break, and bold leadership has been in short supply for a very long time. Mississippi's story is ultimately one of potential and failure. Not corruption like Louisiana, just failure. Generational, systemic, heartbreaking failure. The lowest income in America, worst health care, high crime, high poverty, people leaving. But also, real education reform that's actually working, genuine affordability, rich cultural heritage, the warmest people you'll meet. Mississippi doesn't need to be number 49. It could be much better. The Mississippi Miracle in education proves that when the right policies are implemented, things improve. The question is whether Mississippi's leadership has the courage to apply that same energy to healthcare, economic development, and infrastructure. Until they do, and they need to stop refusing Medicaid expansion because people are dying over that decision, Mississippi will stay near the bottom. The people of Mississippi deserve the same shot at the American dream as everyone else. They're not getting it. So who should move to Mississippi? Blues music lovers and historians. The Delta is a pilgrimage site for anyone who loves American music. Incredible. Retirees on fixed income. Seriously. Number 8 in affordability means your retirement dollar goes incredibly far here. Just make sure you have good health care coverage because the state won't provide it. People who genuinely value community. Mississippi communities look after each other in ways you don't see in wealthier states. Real neighborly culture. Bargain hunters. You want a 4-bedroom house with land for $120,000? Mississippi is calling. Who should not move there? Young, ambitious professionals. Anyone relying on the state healthcare system. Anyone who needs a robust job market. Mississippi, ranked number 49 out of 50. Overall score, 14.56 out of 100. One step above the absolute bottom, but only one step. The bottom line, Mississippi has far more going for it than most people realize. But generational poverty, refused healthcare expansion, and population loss keep dragging it toward the bottom. The Mississippi Miracle in education shows change is possible here. Now they need a Mississippi Miracle for everything else. Next episode, West Virginia, ranked number 48, the opioid crisis poster child. Subscribe so you don't miss it.